Welcome back, my friends. Shale fracking is stealing the show as oil and gas spending surges. In Q1, U.S. shale attracted most of the overall increase in capex spending. Energy security concerns were one of the drivers behind this surge in spending. Are U.S. oil frackers finally getting out in the field and getting their rig counts up? Is U.S. oil production capacity finally going to reach its potential? It seems like the frackers had been on some version of a strike, until Q1, that is. If you were watching the stock market, you know that energy stocks are the best performers on the stock market this year. What does this mean for consumers? What does this mean for energy markets? What does this mean for oil companies? What does it mean for the U.S. economy? And what does it mean for the future of the United States? But, before we get into all of that, please hit the like button and leave us a comment below. We would love to hear from you. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you are notified of upcoming videos when they are released. And, before we continue, a word from the sponsor of this video. Today's sponsor is InnerLife.com, creator of the InnerLife STS system. InnerLife STS is a cloud mobile platform for mental health care and its integration with primary medical care. InnerLife STS is designed for assessment, data collection and analytics, documentation, and progress tracking. InnerLife STS creates and composes conceptualized narratives and builds them into professional-grade reports. These reports are designed for use by mental health professionals, primary care physicians, justice system professionals and universities and include mental health assessment reports, mental health treatment reports, and treatment progress reports. And InnerLife STS uses doctor-selected pseudonames for all patients. So, only the healthcare professional knows the patient identity. Fracking, short for hydraulic fracturing, is a method of extracting natural gas and oil from shale rock formations deep below the Earth's surface. The process involves drilling a well vertically and then horizontally into the shale rock formation. Once the well reaches the desired depth, a high-pressure mixture of water, sand, and chemicals is injected into the well to fracture the rock and release the trapped natural gas or oil. The sand injected into the well is used to prop open the fractures, allowing the natural gas or oil to flow more easily to the surface. The chemicals added to the water help to reduce friction, prevent bacterial growth, and dissolve minerals in the shale. Fracking has been controversial due to concerns about its potential impact on the environment, such as water contamination, air pollution, and seismic activity. Additionally, there are concerns about the potential contribution of natural gas extracted through fracking to climate change due to methane emissions during the extraction process. Fracking in the United States has seen a decline in recent years for several reasons, including 1. Economic factors. The decline in oil and gas prices has made fracking less profitable. 1. When oil and gas prices are low, it becomes more expensive to extract them through fracking. 2. Public opposition. Fracking has been controversial due to concerns about its potential impact on the environment and public health. 2. Public opposition to fracking has led to regulatory restrictions and moratoriums on fracking in some areas. 3. Regulatory restrictions. In recent years, some states and countries have implemented stricter regulations on fracking, including requirements for testing and monitoring of well water and the disposal of wastewater. 4. Technological limitations. The amount of oil and gas that can be extracted through fracking is limited by the quality of the rock and the availability of water and sand. 4. As a result, there are limits to how much oil and gas can be extracted from a given location through fracking. Overall, the decline in fracking is likely a combination of these factors, with economic factors playing a particularly important role. Global energy reliability concerns are triggering a surge in oil and gas investments. But this uptick is only temporary, and service companies should capitalize now before the focus returns to the energy transition. After Russia invaded Ukraine, expected investments in fossil fuels in 2022 and 2023 surged by $140 billion, Rystad Energy Research shows. Before the war, the two-year total was projected at $945 billion, but as the war sparked shortages and sky-high prices, expected spending has jumped to almost $1.1 trillion. Of the $140 billion growth, shale production attracted most of the limelight with an additional $80 billion increase, as activity climbed 30% and pricing for oilfield services jumped nearly 50%. Offshore production accounted for $40 billion in growth, while other onshore activities expanded by an additional $20 billion. Service companies should make the most of this upturn now, while keeping one eye firmly on the future. The energy transition is not slowing down. Huge waves of investments in renewables and clean tech are on the horizon. So, to ensure their long-term success, service companies should adapt their offerings now to capitalize fully on the inevitable green revolution, says Auden Martinson, head of supply chain research at Rystad Energy. Last year's sudden need for more upstream activity through more rigs, more completed wells, and more greenfield sanctioning was so strong that the oilfield service supply chain could not meet the record demand for services and equipment that emerged in shale, offshore and conventional markets. As a result, service prices rose, and more than half of the additional spending so far has ended up as a 5 percentage point increase in suppliers' profit margins rather than as more activity. Energy security concerns have unlocked significant additional investments in oil and gas, boosting spending forecasts and sending the expected timing for peak oil demand out in time. The first wave of extra spending over the past 15 months mainly went to oil and gas, while low-carbon industries faced a slowdown due to high inflation and shortages in the supply chain. But low-carbon spending will bounce back, as energy security is not only about securing oil and gas here and now but also about securing cleaner energy for the future. The U.S. Inflation Reduction Act and the recently announced Critical Raw Mineral and Technology Acts in the European Union will strengthen the significant investment cycle brewing in the renewable and clean tech sectors. Solar, wind, carbon capture, hydrogen, and batteries are all markets that will benefit from supportive policies to accelerate low-carbon deployment and build up local supply chains. Gaining control of the supply chain is crucial for countries and regions to become less dependent on global value chains. Even though the sun shines and the wind blows in every country, the energy must still be harnessed and stored locally. This can only be done with a reliable, often local, supply chain, says Martinson. The White House's top energy advisor Amos Hochstein called shale drillers un-American. That is because of their refusal to boost oil production. 10 years ago, frackers always increased production when prices rose by even a little bit. But oil investors have been burned in recent years. They are watching how shale drillers burn their cash. Frackers turned the United States in the biggest oil producer in the world. Then oil prices famously crashed and went negative in 2020. Even though the drop was short-lived, it changed things for a long time. Now, 2 years later, it seems like a whole new world. Oil prices and shale drillers are different versions of themselves. No company is pushing the envelope to see just how much oil it can produce. Instead, shale drillers are teaching themselves capital discipline. Frackers are prioritizing their shareholders after, some might say, years of neglect. If you are watching the stock market, you know that energy stocks are the best performers on the stock market this year. And none of them want to rock the boat. The oil industry is blamed for high gasoline prices. Oil firm executives are blaming Biden administration's policies. Anti-oil rhetoric, inflation, contractor time delays, and regulatory uncertainty. These factors are all negatively impacting drilling and production planning. Raging inflation and critical supply chain delays scuttled that growth. Growth was also muted due to the headwinds created by oilfield services limitations. Drillers were also scared by the risk of recession. The current state of affairs of the U.S. oil industry stand in stark contrast most of the past decade. Between 2009 and 2019, U.S. oil producers ran wild. They captured almost all of the incremental global consumption. OPEC Plus announced a series of production cuts, starting in November. That is the equivalent to 2% of the global crude oil supply. Crude oil prices have risen sharply following the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But that was back in February. Russia has been a major global exporter of oil and gas. The United States is teetering on the brink of recession. The United States produces almost 19 million barrels of oil every day. But the United States is also the largest consumer of oil in the world. So, there is only so much crude oil available for export. And, until 2016, oil exports of crude oil from the United States were illegal. But, what do you think? Please hit the like button and leave us a comment below. We would love to hear from you. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you are notified of upcoming videos when they are released. Please share this video on social media. Thank you for watching.